It started with a dare, as these things often do. A simple challenge thrown out to break the monotony of a typical Friday night. A group of us, bored teenagers on a Friday night, looking for a thrill. We were restless, craving something more than the usual hangout spots in video games. Someone mentioned Willow Creek Asylum. It was a local legend, a place whispered about in hushed tones, the kind of place that dared you to test your courage. An abandoned asylum with a dark history. Stories of mistreated patients and ghostly apparitions filled our minds. I should have walked away right then, but the thrill was too tempting. But curiosity, like a siren's call, drew me in. We piled into Mark's beat-up Jeep, the engine groaning in protest. The vehicle was as old and worn as the stories we had heard. The headlights cut through the darkness as we drove further and further away from civilization. The road seemed endless, each mile taking us deeper into the unknown. My heart pounded in my chest, a drumbeat of apprehension. We pulled up to the gates, rusted metal twisted like grotesque claws. The sight alone was enough to make anyone second-guess their decision. The air grew heavy, thick with a silence that felt almost predatory. A dense fog began to roll in, adding to the eerie atmosphere. This was a place where even the air held its breath. A place where fear was not a visitor, but a permanent resident. The shadows seemed to move, and every creak of the old building sent shivers down our spines. We were in too deep to turn back now. The asylum loomed before us, a Gothic monolith against the night sky. Its crumbling facade was like a decaying skull, windows like empty sockets staring back at us. A shiver ran down my spine and I pulled my jacket tighter around myself. The wind howled through the trees, sounding like the screams of tortured souls. It was the kind of night that sent chills crawling down your spine. Even the bravest among us hesitated, but we had come too far to turn back now. We pushed open the creaking gates, the metal groaning in protest. The sound echoed through the night, amplified by the oppressive silence. It felt like we were stepping into the mouth of a monster. The air inside was stale and heavy, thick with the smell of decay and something else. It was as if the very walls were exhaling the memories of a forgotten past, each breath laden with the weight of time. Something unnameable, but undeniably sinister. It clung to the shadows, whispering secrets that were never meant to be heard. Dust motes danced in the pale moonlight that filtered through the grimy windows. They seemed to move with a life of their own, swirling in patterns that hinted at stories long forgotten. The silence was broken only by the sound of our own breathing, each inhale and exhale amplified in the stillness. Every step we took echoed through the empty halls, a reminder of the desolation that surrounded us. We stepped cautiously over broken glass and debris, our eyes adjusting to the gloom. The floor was a minefield of hazards, each step a calculated risk. The air grew colder, the temperature dropping noticeably as we ventured deeper into the asylum's bowels. It was as if the building itself was warning us, urging us to turn back. A cold draft brushed past me and I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was a sensation that crawled up my spine, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand on end. There was a presence here, I could feel it. It was an oppressive force, lurking just beyond the edge of perception, always there but never seen. An unseen observer, lurking in the shadows. It was as if the darkness itself had eyes, watching our every move with a malevolent intent. It sent a shiver down my spine, and I instinctively moved closer to the group. We huddled together, seeking comfort in our shared fear, knowing that whatever lay ahead we would face it together. We moved deeper into the asylum, each room we entered more unsettling than the last. Restraints lay discarded on rusty beds. Medical charts with their chilling diagnoses littered the floor. It was like stepping into a nightmare, where the line between sanity and madness blurred. The silence was broken by the occasional creak or groan of the aging building, but there were other sounds too, faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. They were too low to make out any words, but their tone was undeniably menacing. "Did you hear that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. We all had. We exchanged nervous glances, each of us trying to mask our growing fear. The air grew colder still as we descended a flight of stairs. The steps were slick with moisture and the air was thick with the smell of mildew. The darkness at the bottom of the stairs felt absolute, all-consuming. We fumbled for our flashlights, their beams cutting through the darkness like knives. As my eyes adjusted, I thought I saw something move in the shadows at the end of the hallway. A flicker of movement, too quick to be certain. "What was that?" I whispered, my voice barely a croak. The others followed my gaze, their faces pale in the flashlight beams. We reached a room at the end of the hallway, the door hanging open like a broken jaw, creaking ominously as if it were warning us to stay away. A chill wind rushed out, carrying with it the faint scent of decay and something else, something that made the hairs on the back of our necks stand up, something that smelled like fear, a pungent, almost metallic scent that seemed to cling to the walls. We stepped inside, our flashlights illuminating the horrors within, casting long, eerie shadows that danced on the peeling wallpaper. It was a treatment room, with a rusted operating table in the center, its surface stained with the remnants of long-forgotten procedures. Straps hung limply from the sides, and I could almost hear the screams of the patients who had been restrained there, their desperate cries echoing in the silence. And then I saw it, a movement in the corner of my eye that made my blood run cold. Standing in the corner, shrouded in shadow, was a figure, its presence almost palpable in the oppressive darkness. It was tall and gaunt, its form indistinct in the darkness, like a specter from a nightmare. But its eyes, glowing with an eerie light, were fixed on us, unblinking and full of a malevolent intelligence that sent shivers down our spines. Panic surged through me, raw and primal. I stumbled back, my heart pounding against my ribs. The figure moved, gliding silently towards us. Its eyes never left ours, filled with a cold, malevolent intelligence. "Run!" I screamed, my voice cracking with terror. We turned and fled, scrambling back down the hallway, our footsteps echoing in the silence. The figure moved with unnatural speed, its footsteps silent but ever closer. We could hear its ragged breathing behind us, feel its icy breath on our necks. The air crackled with fear, our own terror fueling its pursuit. We ran blindly, our lungs burning, our legs screaming for respite, but there was no escape, no sanctuary in this nightmare. The asylum seemed to stretch on forever, a labyrinth of shadows and fear. We dodged down corridors, our flashlights bouncing erratically, casting grotesque shadows that danced on the walls. The air was thick with the sound of our own ragged breathing and the pounding of our hearts. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The figure was closer now, its eyes burning with a terrifying intensity. Its mouth was open in a silent scream, revealing rows of sharp, jagged teeth. We burst into a large, cavernous room, our hopes rising momentarily. But then we saw that there was no escape. The windows were boarded shut, the doors chained and padlocked. We were trapped. The figure stepped into the doorway, blocking our only exit. It stood there, bathed in the pale moonlight, its grin widening into a grotesque mockery of a smile. We were cornered prey, and it was the predator, toying with us before it moved in for the kill. The air grew heavy, the silence deafening. We were surrounded by the darkness, the oppressive weight of the asylum pressing down on us. The figure moved then, lunging towards us with impossible speed. We scattered, our screams echoing through the empty room. I could hear the others, their voices filled with terror, but I didn't dare take my eyes off the creature. It moved like a predator, stalking us through the shadows, herding us towards our inevitable demise. We were at its mercy, helpless against its supernatural power. I could feel its presence, cold and menacing, closing in on me. The air crackled with energy, the very walls seeming to vibrate with its power. The last thing I remember was the feeling of icy fingers closing around my arm, the creature's hot, fetid breath on my neck. Then darkness swallowed me whole. We never spoke of what we saw that night, but the memory lingers, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks at the edge of our reality. Willow Creek Asylum claimed our innocence, our peace of mind. We escaped with our lives, but we were forever changed, haunted by the knowledge that some things are best left undisturbed. Some doors should never be opened.